We're back. My name is Jay Weidner. You are listening to Smoke and Mirrors, the radio show for intelligent people. And we're talking to Acharya S. And we're talking about religions and a lot of other interesting things. Acharya, I was wondering, have you ever, I presume from looking at your site and reading your work, that you've kind of made that the connection between ancient Egypt and Christianity and the strange analogies between Osiris and God and Horus and Jesus and Isis and Mary and Satan and Set. And, so I've quit saying Judeo-Christianity and I now say Egypto-Christianity because it's really more Egyptian than it is Jewish, isn't it?
Isn't it amazing? You just encapsulated it very well. Have I been... Yes. You were speaking of Zeitgeist earlier, and in fact, that first part of the first Zeitgeist was influenced in significant part by my book, and so I have I've had to come out with all of this more wondrous material to assure the people who had seen that there was serious scholarly scientific evidence for the claims in that movie. And so that led to this companion guide, which was a partial, exploration of the Egyptian connections in Zeitgeist. And then I wrote this massive study called Christ in Egypt, the Horus-Jesus connection, that goes into the details. You have this list of Horus, born on December 25th of the Virgin Isis Mary, and all those characteristics that were so similar to the Christ myth. And I put together from thousands of Egyptian texts. It was a very grueling task. I went through them in a number of different translations, primary sources, just hundreds and hundreds of different primary sources I scoured, and some of it I translated from Egyptian. But I compared all these different resources, 900 sources in my book. There's 2,400 footnotes, and this massive study that shows where all of these elements come from, what they mean, and that they really are real. These parallels, these comparisons, these similarities between the Egyptian religion and Christianity, and that they could, it was just, this was the most obvious thing imaginable in the Mediterranean was Egypt and its massive culture and monuments, and there was so much of it that it couldn't be destroyed by the fanatics who have come since, which would include, of course, Christians and the Muslims. And they haven't been able to destroy all of it, although, of course, in this era, we're seeing even more degradation and destruction going on, unfortunately. That's religious fanaticism for you. But
yep.
But yes, these comparisons are very profound. The Egyptian religion really has much more meaning to it than just crazy people worshiping crocodiles and ibises and hawks and so forth. Their spirituality was tied into the earth itself, but also the cycles of nature. For example, Osiris was a sort of a night sun god, but also represented water, especially the Nile, and the Nile overflooding every year was claimed to be Osiris, fertilizing the banks of Isis to create the new life of Horus. And so all of this was like daily Egyptian perception of reality. Everything was animated by the gods, by sentience, by divinity. And it must have been just completely extraordinary to live in such a mindset.
I agree. I completely agree with that. I think that waking up every day and having, time and space be sacred as they understood it, well, I can't even imagine what it must have been like.
Yeah, you can see its outward expression in these magnificent buildings that they were able to create, and we still don't know how, with things like the Great Pyramid of Giza and so forth, how exactly they were able to manifest this unbelievable building, and then the Sphinx, and the Temple of Karnak, and it's just endless. All these tombs and so forth, and they all had this divine meaning attached to them. You know, there were. And by the way, it's been estimated that there were 500 million followers of the Egyptian religion over a period of 3,000 years or so. Mm. So this is not an insignificant portion of humanity. And they had tremendous influence on surrounding cultures, including the Judean one, which was only a couple hundred miles away. You know, Jerusalem really was not far, and there was this well-worn Horus road that took them from Jerusalem to Egypt. So this isn't like saying, you know, oh, how could they have been influenced? They were so far away, they had to cross a major ocean of a couple thousand miles. No, they only had to just walk by foot a few hundred miles, and they were right in the heart of Egyptian territory. So to say that there was no influence this massive culture had no influence on the Judaic one is like saying that the Jews lived in a vacuum, completely untouched by anyone around them. So.
Yeah, well, I agree with that. I think, of course, that the Egyptian influence is much more prevalent than we've been led to believe, including even in India seems to have some Egyptian influence, or maybe Egypt has some Indian influences. I can't really decide which way it went. You know, it depends on who was first, and it's kind of hard to tell. It looks like India might have been a little bit earlier than Egypt, but I really can't say. Some people tell me that Egypt is, 100,000 years old. That's certainly what the priest told Herodotus, that it was over 100,000 years old, so we don't know. But I suspect it is probably much older than we can believe. There's all sorts of strange things in Egypt, too. There's a large slab of black granite that has about 10,000 hieroglyphs engraved in it. And we stuck a toothpick down into the hieroglyph, and the toothpick went down 2 inches into black granite. This hieroglyph was probably about 1/4 of an inch by 1/4 of an inch big. Now, you tell me
drills.
How. Yeah, I mean, not even a drill could do it that clean.
Yeah, it's amazing. I know, it's amazing. I listened to my friend, dear old friend Christopher Dunn, talk about the various tool marks and so forth on on these different monuments.